At the conclusion of Doctor Who Flux, the Daleks assemble a massive fleet of saucers to meet with the Sontarans and the Cybermen for a supposed truce in one of the most visually stunning sequences of New Who. This fleet had been used by the Daleks to conquer what remained of the universe following the Great Disruption, the beginning of the Flux event which caused immense destruction throughout the universe and displaced countless millions across the galaxy. As time itself began to unravel, the Daleks, as well as other aggressive races in the universe such as the Sontarans and the Cybermen, took advantage of the situation and began to rapidly expand their territory, catching many civilizations off guard and creating huge sectors of space controlled exclusively by Daleks, Cybermen or Sontarans. The Dalek War Fleet itself appeared to be led by a saucer commanded by Death Squad Daleks, and according to its leader, the fleet was comprised of all the Dalek battalions that the Empire could muster, with the exception of specialised individual units such as the Dalek Executioners. As part of a ruse designed to wipe out the Sontaran's enemies, the Sontaran General Stenk invited the Dalek War Fleet and the Cyber Fleet to rendezvous at a location protected by a Lupari shield wall which the Sontarans had hijacked, that could protect the Sontarans, Daleks and Cybermen from the final Flux wave, leaving them the sole inhabitants of the remainder of the universe. Both the Daleks and the Cybermen appeared to agree in the name of mutually assured survival, and each faction brought their fleet to join with the Sontarans. However, Stenk betrayed the Daleks and Cybermen, collapsing the Lupari shield wall and allowing the Flux wave to consume the ships with antimatter. Realising the betrayal too late, the Daleks and Cybermen were trapped in the pull of the Flux and destroyed. However, Stenk would soon discover that his own treacherous plot would become his undoing, as the Doctor and Carvanista, who was the last surviving member of the Lupari after the Sontarans slaughtered the rest of his species, reprogrammed the Lupari shield wall to form behind the Sontaran ships, turning their own trap against them and ensuring their defeat. Ironically, the Daleks would come to blame the Doctor for their destruction, even dispatching executioners to exterminate her once the threat of the Flux had ended. In reality, had the Doctor not intervened, Stenk would have gotten away with the greatest betrayal and slaughter of Sontar's enemies in the history of the universe, perhaps making him the greatest Sontaran who ever lived. Indeed, this spectacular loss for the Daleks makes one wonder why they agreed to the truce in the first place. However, the answer is fairly clear. The Daleks evidently do not have anti-flux technology, neither do the Cybermen, and the Sontarans only have it thanks to their stolen Lupari fleet, and the Lupari only have it because Carvanista once worked with Division, the ancient and clandestine Gallifreyan sect led by Tech-Tayun, who created the Flux in the first place to wipe out everything in the universe, which the Daleks likely had no knowledge of. So we can assume that the Flux was fine-tuned by Division to be unstoppable to Daleks, Cybermen and Sontarans, but that they didn't account for the Lupari. The Daleks likely intended on waiting behind the Lupari barrier with the Sontarans and Cybermen, only to break the truce once the Flux had passed, and take the Lupari barrier from the Sontarans to use for themselves, and potentially reverse engineer. Unfortunately for the Daleks, they didn't account for Stenk's imminent betrayal, again illustrating that their primary weakness is ultimately their own arrogance. Then again, we know that not all the Daleks were destroyed with the Dalek War Fleet. The previously mentioned executioners were not present for the truce, and while they do state that millions of Daleks were destroyed with the fleet, they also mention a Dalek command, implying that a higher authority exists elsewhere in the universe that elected to not join the War Fleet, implying that maybe the Daleks did have some other way to combat the Flux, but it was one that was only available to their highest ranking leaders. Other Dalek factions do also exist post-Flux, such as the Daleks who worked with the Master, who fired orange beams and had apparently strayed so far from the standard Dalek way that a traitor Dalek broke from their ranks and attempted to ally itself with the Doctor. So it could be that while Dalek Command survived the Flux by some unknown means, the destruction of their war fleet did significant damage to their empire, on a scale similar to the destruction of Skaro in The Evil of the Daleks, or the aftermath of the Imperial Renegade Dalek Civil War from Remembrance of the Daleks. Time will tell what the future holds for the Daleks. What do you think of the Dalek War Fleet? Let me know in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.